European Publishing Congress 2026.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a great day in Vienna. And I think we should take the opportunity to thank the whole Our team for this experience, don't we? Well, anyway, thank you also to the 4 AI bots we have today who translate everything, and to the 4 human interpreters who are with us. Glad to have you. There are moments in a career when you feel you've cracked the code somehow. And I had that feeling recently when our team successfully deployed an agentic AI system capable of answering media inquiries automatically. Now, as a former journalist, I have to admit, I totally know that sentence alone should make some of you slightly uncomfortable. Now, is that really it? Are we going to enter a phase when politics, business, other organizations will have our journalistic research answered by machines? Well, the first large PR departments I know are getting ready to use this AI media responder, by the way, from a Bavarian company called Yes Press. As a matter of fact, the PR people I know are planning to use it exactly as designed. So, speed up the time to answer, sharing answers they gave a minute ago to other media, by looking up relevant information within seconds, and by defining the human on the loop as guiding principle. So they want to improve their service and spend more time with you rather than less. That's a good news. How long will it take you to have an AI agent send a questionnaire to the company, and this is of course generated automatically, and return to sender instantly if an answer is missing, recklessly? This is why my presentation today is called The Battle of the Agents, why maintaining control over AI in journalism and PR is so essential. Exactly 20 years ago, another code captured the world's imagination. In May 2006, the Da Vinci Code premiered at the film festival in Cannes. So exactly 20 years ago. A Harvard symbologist works with that. Suddenly he finds himself chasing a conspiracy across Europe. A conspiracy so complicated that, well, it would probably require some PowerPoints and steering meetings before anyone was allowed to investigate it. And together with a cryptologist, Professor Langdon deciphers symbols, he recognizes patterns, and he tries to answer one question, one distinctive question: what is actually true? And that brings us surprisingly to the question of artificial intelligence. It's very close, because journalism has always been about exactly that. And Stefan Aust said it this morning: finding out what is true. Not what is loud, not what is trending, not what is convenient, what is true. And for most of my career, the division of labor was, well, relatively straightforward. Communicators interpreted reality, journalists investigated reality, well, and readers consumed the result of that. Today, all three increasingly interact with artificial intelligence, and that, of course, changes everything. As a journalist, I was always trained to distrust these narratives. As a communication executive, I was paid to create them. So artificial intelligence is now the first technology that is transforming both professions simultaneously. The discussion about AI often focuses on technology. I think it should focus on something else: control. Because behind almost every AI discussion I encounter, three surprisingly fundamental questions appear. One, do we believe AI merely increases efficiency, or does it generate genuine insight? Two, do we believe humans still control these systems, or are the systems already gradually setting the pace for us? And three, do we believe we need to understand how AI works, or are we willing to trust anything that sounds damn convincing? At our Institute of Applied Communication Intelligence, these questions emerge almost every day. Organizations are investing billions in AI, yet many struggle to answer a much simpler question: what exactly have they bought? Many executives believe they have purchased knowledge. What they actually have purchased is language. It's nothing more, nothing less. Large language models are astonishingly good at it. Grammar, semantics, style, translation, of course. It can write in English, German, French, Spanish, Chinese, Mandarin with remarkable fluency. But it's not a knowledge model. We should not forget that. It's a language model. And fluency is not the same as understanding. Without understanding how words relate to the world, language itself becomes meaningless. And that distinction matters, particularly for journalists. Because journalism has never been about producing sentences. Journalism is about producing justified conclusions. A language model predicts words. A journalist evaluates evidence. And those are not the same thing. Remember the early years of generative AI? 5 years ago, these systems occasionally made spelling mistakes. We didn't know that from computers, did we? Spelling mistakes. So human errors had found their way in these systems into the training data somehow. And today those mistakes, they have largely disappeared. Not because AI suddenly became very intelligent, but because statistical probability eventually defeated individual errors. People often criticize AI by saying, it only predicts the next word, that's all. My answer is, so do we. If I begin a sentence with, ladies and, most of you already know how it ends. Your brain continuously predicts. Language is itself probabilistic. And the remarkable thing about AI is not that it predicts words. The remarkable thing is how similar this process is to human language understanding. What matters is whether we understand the limitations of Gen AI, because today's generative AI systems are language systems. Tomorrow's systems will increasingly become something else: world models. We will not talk about LLMs by 2030, we will talk about world models. A language model knows how to talk about a traffic jam. A world model understands why the traffic jam occurred and perhaps how to prevent the next one. Language models simulate communication. World models simulate reality. And for journalism, this distinction matters enormously, because journalism has never been about reproducing language. It's always about understanding reality. And this is where the battle of agents begins. Today's journalists increasingly use AI for research, analysis, translation, summarization, producing other variants of an article. On the other side of the desk, corporate communication departments are building AI systems that answer questions, draft statements, provide contextual information. In our Comtech unit, we increasingly discuss a scenario that sounded like science fiction some years ago. Journalistic agents interviewing corporate agents. Now think about what that could mean. A journalist would no longer start with a blank page. Instead, an AI agent could begin the investigation. It could read annual reports, analyze earning calls, review previous statements, compare positions over time, detect unusual changes in wording, and generate a first set of hypotheses. And then the agent contacts the organization's AI media responder, not with one question, with hundreds. It requests data, demands sources, asks for evidence, requests clarification, and it challenges inconsistencies. And if an answer is missing, well, it asks again, and again, and again. Organizations will soon face a counterpart that never gets tired, never forgets, never overlooks a document, and never misses a deadline. So the question is not whether it will happen, the question is whether organizations are prepared for that. Because once AI agents start talking to AI agents on the other side of the desk, communications changes fundamentally. Languages then become less important. Evidence, reputation, consistency become more important. Machine-readable truth, that's what becomes important. And only after this machine briefing, machine-to-machine briefing, is completed does the journalist enter the stage. Better informed, better prepared, and for the meeting with a PR representative equipped with, let's say, 10 difficult questions instead of generic ones. Wouldn't that be fun? The first AI agent sent 500 questions. The corporate AI responded within seconds, and somewhere in the middle, two humans still trying to find a slot in Outlook. AI agents read annual financial reports that are written partly or fully already by AI. They compare competitors, analyze earning calls, generate interview questions, write first drafts, and that's how analysts already work nowadays. That's the new normal, and probably as well some business sections online or in your newspapers do so. Information will move from machine to machine before any human sees it. And suddenly, a fascinating question emerges. What exactly should organizations communicate to machines? For decades, communication departments optimized information for human readers. Well, the so-called press release. We love it? No. But it was there. And tomorrow, these organizations have to optimize information for both, for human readers and for machine readers simultaneously. At our institute, we repeatedly ask corporations one practical question. If you do not want a journalist to write about your organization without facts, without anything else, now, why should you let a robot do that? Without source material, why would you allow an AI to do so? And yet that's exactly what many organizations do. They ask a language model to speak on their behalf, to write on their behalf, just, they hope, statistical probability somehow turns into corporate truth. And I've argued against this approach, well, for years already, for years. And the first thing we usually do in implementation of projects is we forbid to use the world knowledge about their organization. Instead, we build curated knowledge, curated environments, structured context, approved positions, historical developments, expert knowledge. And that makes sure that the information the system has, well, usually is better than what you can find on the internet. Because organizations should not outsource their identity to probability. And interestingly, this is not only relevant for communicators. It is highly relevant for you journalists, because if organizations start communicating with AI agents, well, they must provide something more valuable than polished language. They must provide data, context, evidence, sources, machine-readable information. And today, only a very small fraction of organizations systematically curate institutional knowledge. Over the past few years, I've asked several hundred participants in over a dozen presentations, and the result is remarkably consistent. Only about 1% have a structured message library in place. So that means only 1% have systematically documented what they stand for, what they know as organization and want to communicate. The remaining 99% are still asking AI systems to improvise. So garbage in, garbage out. And if an organization has not clearly defined its own knowledge base, positions, and messages, probabilities will fill the gap, and you feel that right away. Good communication does not start with writing. It starts with thinking. And the same is true for journalism. Good journalism does not start with writing, it starts with understanding. Perhaps the press release itself, unfortunately, will not disappear, but it may no longer be enough. The press release was designed for human readers. The future may require something additional: continuously maintained knowledge spaces, structured information, data repositories, machine-readable context you can work with right away, or your AI agents, because you get information that can be understood by both journalists and AI systems. And perhaps the most radical idea of all, information streams that remain available when it's uncomfortable. Because trust is not built by publishing favorable information. Trust is built by publishing reliable information, for the better and the worse. The press release of the future might become a continuously maintained knowledge space you will be provided with. Now, let us talk about business models, because AI is not merely changing journalism, it is changing the economics of journalism, as we heard before lunch. And perhaps we have seen this movie somehow before. For decades, print newspapers enjoyed an extraordinary position. Then came the internet. And online journalism was often faster, more accessible, more immediate, often free of charge. It matched a new lifestyle, always connected, always informed, always available. And readers followed attention. Advertisers followed the readers, and advertising budget followed both. The result was painful, but somehow understandable, wasn't it? Revenue gradually migrated from print to digital. Yet there was still one reassuring fact: audiences continued to visit journalistic websites. Media brands still owned the relationship with readers. And that assumption is now being challenged again in 2026. Because AI systems increasingly intercept users before they ever reach a publisher's website. People no longer search for an article, they ask AI to get information. The AI reads the article, summarizes it, explains it, and sometimes the user never visits the source. The journalists did their work. The publisher financed it. The AI consumed it. And the audience consumed the AI summary. And everyone wonders why this business model doesn't work. And for almost 3 decades, the open web operated on a remarkable, simple bargain. Search engines and publishers had largely aligned incentives. Publishers created content, search engines helped users to discover this content. The better journalism performed, well, the more valuable search became. Both sides benefited from the same ecosystem. Wonderful. But that alignment is beginning to break right now. Because AI systems are not rewarded for helping users find journalism. The success of the intermediary depends on preventing the click. That is a profound shift. The intermediary no longer creates value by routing audiences to publishers. It creates value by becoming the destination itself. And we should be fully aware of that. AI chatbots do not help users find the source of information. They make users avoid clicking further, and instead of sending readers to a publisher's website. Some courts have already defined AI-generated summaries as independent creative achievements. Wonderful. That must have been shocking news for you. Because journalism is expensive. Foreign correspondence, investigative reportings, verification are expensive. Truth has production costs. Summarization not. Machines are becoming the primary readers of journalism. An anecdote. 8 weeks ago, I started the AI Insights briefing together with a good friend of mine. By the way, you will be able to listen to my interview with Stefan Ost I did today there. But this is not the reason why I tell you, why I mention this AI briefing, Insights briefing. After that short time of 8 weeks, we just found out that we already have 1,200 AI bots listening and analyzing our podcast. And those 1,200 from the US alone, 4 from China. That changes economics fundamentally. The value may increasingly shift from creating information toward summarizing information. And that creates a profound challenge, not only for publishers, for democracy. Because democracies depend on institutions that produce reliable information. They depend on you. There is an opportunity hidden with this challenge, of course, because AI may ultimately make one thing more valuable and not less: trust. It's in a world flooded with synthetic content, trust becomes scarce. And scarcity creates value. People do not subscribe to quality media because information is unavailable elsewhere. News and information is everywhere. People still subscribe to you because credibility is scarce. Reputation, consistency, editorial standards. In an age of infinite synthetic content, trust becomes the scarcest resource we can think of. And that brings us to the perhaps most exciting opportunity of all. For the first time in history, nearly all relevant human knowledge is now digitally accessible. Scientific literature, news archives, public debates, corporate disclosures, government documents, social media, satellite imagery. The challenge is no longer finding information. The challenge is deciding what matters. We used to lack of knowledge back then. Today, we lack of clear judgment. This is precisely where AI becomes truly transformative, not as a writing machine or content factory. Its greatest strength lies elsewhere, pattern recognition. Let me give you a practical example. A media intelligence company I came across during my time at Audi analyzes millions of documents across markets, language, and topics every day. They even have AI in their name, AI-tastic. And their AI models are not LLMs. They do a fantastic job. They identify even weak signals. They detect anomalies. They recognize emerging issues, reveal connections that no individual human could discover manually. And at our institute, we support the vision of a real-time, four-dimensional map of our planet. All over the world, people are beginning to create a new map of the Earth. Four-dimensional because we are not only observing the state of the world, we are observing how it changes over time. And that's new sensors of our society. And this is where we definitely leave back large language models. This is where we are talking of world models, the world models I mentioned at the beginning. Maybe you think of the great movie Measuring the World, based on the life of Alexander von Humboldt and Carl Friedrich Gauss. But think of new horizons. Nowadays, satellites show us where something happens. Communication intelligence increasingly helps us understand why. One example. The satellite picture shows a strange emptiness somewhere, let's say on an inner city parking lot. Nobody could tell why it's empty during the day. But people on social media report a bank robbery at the same time, at the same place. So for the first time, we can combine physical and communicative reality at enormous scale. We can observe not only events, but narratives, sentiments, interpretations. What is going on in the world? Behavioral shifts, emerging crises, and opportunities, of course. And this may ultimately become one of the greatest opportunities for journalism, because journalists equipped with these capabilities, they gain extraordinary analytical powers. A single journalist can investigate databases or data sets that only once required whole teams. A newsroom can discover patterns invisible only a few years ago. A publisher can identify societal shifts earlier than competitors. So you see, all this is not necessarily the end of journalism. It may become its renaissance. Yet there remains one danger that concerns me more than any technical dimension. It's not artificial intelligence. I believe the danger is natural human convenience. Because once a machine provides the first plausible answer, well, our brains become tempted to stop asking questions, stop challenging, stop verifying, stop thinking. And that is dangerous, not because the machine becomes smarter, but because we become intellectually lazy. If we stop thinking, we are not training our machine anymore, we are training our own weaknesses. So the greatest danger is not artificial intelligence, but our convenience. So the next generation will face this challenge even more directly. Will young professionals still learn how to wrestle with complexity, how to challenge assumptions, how to tolerate ambiguity? Will they learn how knowledge is actually created? Or will they increasingly learn how to approve machine-generated answers? And at the Institute of Applied Communication Intelligence, one observation strikes us again and again. The organizations that gain the most from AI are not those who have the most advanced technology. They are the organizations with the strongest culture of critical thinking. The ones that still ask, is this true? Is this relevant? Is this complete? And on top of that, is that useful? Because thinking is hard. AI is convenient. Critical thinking will become the most important culture skill of the AI era. And please don't misunderstand me. I'm not an AI pessimist. Quite the opposite. I'm deeply optimistic. I believe the future belongs to human-machine teams, not machines replacing humans, not humans resisting machines, but intelligent cooperation. And the goal should never be the automation of human judgment. The goal should be the amplification of human capability. It should never be about automating humans and trying to get rid of them. And perhaps that is where journalism has its greatest opportunity. AI may summarize, aggregate, translate, rewrite, but it cannot earn trust. It cannot cultivate sources. It cannot challenge power. It cannot hold institutions accountable. It's not curious. It cannot care. The more AI summarizes the world, the more valuable original reporting becomes. The more AI generates content, well, the more valuable judgment becomes. And the more AI floods society with information, the more valuable trusted institutions become. And perhaps the battle of the agents is therefore, well, not a battle between machines at all. Perhaps it's a battle for trust, for meaning, for truth. And perhaps in the end, we are not really decoding the machine. Perhaps AI helps us decode something much larger, the operating system of our society. I'm convinced the future of journalism will not be determined by whether machines learn to think, but by whether humans continue to do so. Thank you very much.